Up next, what we're going to do is I want to talk just a little bit. We're going into PQ this weekend, and so next week we'll probably talk a lot more PQ. So we have a very big spoiler section we're still doing this week as well, for a Galactic Gazette. But the big thing for me, one of the big things in my opinion, is like we're going to a PQ. We haven't. I still can't decide. I'm now on 4 different decks that I don't know which ones I want to run. I don't know how to make a decision. I don't know how to pick a deck. Like I don't know, Alex. Like, let's talk a little bit, I guess, buddy, because you're in the same boat I am. You haven't picked a deck yet.
Oh yeah, no, I'm still just like making decks. I'm like 3 weeks behind everyone right now. I think the holidays ruined my life. I would even like begin to think about PQ stuff.
Well, that's crazy because we got a PQ coming up here in like 3 days, 4 days.
Yeah, well, we'll figure it out. I got, I got a couple decks. I don't know. Boss Green was super fun to play. My mono Blue Yoda is super fun to play. Just weird stuff though. Like that's my problem. That's all I got is just a bunch of weird decks.
So when JJ easily made his decision, but you did make it pretty late too, which probably hurt you a little bit because you got less reps in. But you made your decision based on that you like the deck. Is that correct, JJ? Why did you pick Gar Yellow?
So when I originally started using Gar Saxon, when it first came out, I usually played them a lot more with a lot of more Mando units, putting a lot of equipment on them and stuff. And it felt fun to do, but at the same time, I found myself spending way too many turns trying to really build up those units in order to really have a good effect with Gar Saxon. With this new list, I was already playing units that were already upgraded either with shields, or they would give an experience to somebody that allowed them to have that ability with Gar Saxon, and it allowed me to play a lot more aggressively with it. In the testing that I was able to do was very limited testing. I did very, very well against the beam decks because I was able to out damage them a lot quickly. My base was a 30 health base, so I was able to last longer than most beam decks could damage me. I did okay with Han decks, but and that was mainly what I was testing against. So I was not prepared to deal with control decks at all. But I felt that if I can do well against those aggressive style lists, or even mid-range lists, then I have a pretty good shot to go. And that fits my play style more. I like to be a lot more aggressive when I'm playing. So that's what kind of drew me to that Gar Saxon deck when I started doing play testing and just fine-tuning it. It felt really great for my play style, just being able to deploy a upgraded unit right off the bat and go straight into it, especially when you start adding in like snapshot reflexes, which is a great way to just get like a quick attack in there. Hot shot blasters being smuggled in to do attacks, they just really add on to that big punch that you need. Same thing with brutal tradition, just being able to constantly bring that up from your discard pile after killing an enemy, just really help buff that list really, really well.
Yep. So, Alex, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on this. I just thought it would be fun to talk a little bit about. So, like the decks that I'm considering, right, are Pelp Yellow, because I like Pelp, and I'm definitely not running that Pelp Red deck. I haven't had enough Pelp Red practice. I'm also considering the Django Tarkentown deck. I have a Quinlan Green deck, and those are like my 3 main contenders, with Thrawn Blue just kind of as I don't care what happens deck. Maybe I should just play this in. So what are your thoughts? Like when we talk through, like how you decide, a deck, we had a whole segment, we talked about this, and I've done none of those things, and now I'm on the last minute. I played probably, like 50 games of each of those decks within the last week, let's say. So, what is your professional opinion? How do we go about making that decision?
Let's see. Well, you'd also, the first thing I would do is think of, like we've been doing, like which decks are very popular, which, decks seem to be a little bit on the decline. What archetypes of decks you're seeing now make in the top 4? Like, you can't really expect like Hondo Green to be there, right? But you understand that it's like, oh, that's just like a top end, like mid range deck. So that's making it there. That Vader Red deck has got like a top end, a little bit mid rangey, a little bit controlly kind of thing. So if you see like a trend between, oh, here's a bunch of more like high end late game mid range decks, maybe you just be like, cool. Maybe my aggro deck can go faster because they're more concerned with late game stuff, or like, hey, my control deck needs X amount of stuff now to deal with like the later game decks, kind of like that. So once you figure out kind of what you think the meta might be leaning towards, then you can try to maybe not like counterpick, but like, well, I have, Han Yellow that I've been playing a lot, and I have like Sabine that I've been playing a lot, right? But like, hey, mid range might not be good into this field, or like it's trending down or something. So maybe I just play my aggro deck instead. Or like, hey, there seems to be a lot more rise of mid range and a lot lower aggro. Let's run my control deck. Hey, there seems to be a lot of like real aggressive like ambush stuff. Maybe I don't need to run as many low cost units as I want. Maybe I can just run other stuff. Or like, hey, there's not a lot of space right now in the meta, I'll just go heavy into space. So that's like a reasonable thing to try to ask. Would my deck play better into the field? And it's still super speculative. But at least you can kind of see trends, especially if it's later on, like a later PQ this year or something like that.
Yeah. So do you feel, so if we going into this week, do you feel we'll see a lot of Han in the PQs this weekend? And then if so, do you think we're going to see a lot of Han in the what I would consider Michigan meta? Because I haven't seen a lot of Han before, if we're being honest.
There's not like a lot of Han by me, but there are like people who have been playing Han and testing Han at the store showdown a couple days ago that I was at. I think there was maybe like 2 or 3 like mono yellow Han decks out of like 20 people, right? So I expect it to be, it's a lot of the popular ones, a lot of the meta stuff. I'm not sure about what your side of the state is in terms of play style, but it seems like my play style around here is a lot of like mid-range stuff.
And we have a lot of aggro that runs rampant. So at the recent, we had 16 people, 12 to 16 people this week at one of the locals I went to. And the 2 decks that were undefeated was an Anakin Blue and a Sabine. And the guy that did the Sabine Green also made top 4 at the last PQ we went to. So like, that's not a surprise. He's a really, really good player. And anyway, long story short, right, is I brought Pelp. I won 2 out of 3 games. I won 1 out of the 3 games against Sabine, and the 3rd game I probably could have won if I played smarter, or at least I would have been a lot closer. I stupidly claimed instead of to get it because I thought he wouldn't swing with his Sabine for some reason. I don't know why I thought that. Like, he had a Darksaber Sabine, so I claimed so that I could try to like kill him the next turn because I had an overwhelming barrage and a 4 cost on the thing, so I wanted to be able to overwhelming barrage him, but I miscalculated 1, so he got to swing twice with his Sabine. So that's 14 damage, and 7 of it could have been prevented because if I just ran my Poggle, and I could have then claimed after that and overwhelming barraged. But so I don't know. So that's the question: is we've seen a lot of aggro, but we're seeing an uptick in some of that mid range and a little bit of control. Like, control's always kind of been there. Like, I think control if it dodges aggro, but do you think Palpatines and the boss greens or the Vader greens of the world can run like a little bit more of a control heavy deck and still be viable into, like, we'll call it the Sabine, Quinlan, Cad world?
Not sure about the Palpatines, but like the blue Bosks, or maybe even like mono blue, like Idens or Krennics or something, which I've seen a couple around us. Like heavy control like that, I still think it's pretty decently viable because you have a lot of restore. Just in general there.
Mm-hmm.
So it would make sense. I know there's a couple guys that are working on like blue green hero stuff, right? And that tends to have a lot of restore, or that's very versatile. You got a lot of like Jedi and stuff, right? So, but it's also like red, yellow heroes pretty popular between like Tarkatown Cad, and we have a couple like yellow Sabines popping up here and there. I occasionally play Fennec. I think you guys have a lot of Lando players over by you, so
We have more. The main one that I
wild
know
to me.
is not playing land. He's not actually. So like he's completely like he's switched off Lando and is on Anakin Blue quite a bit and Han Blue. That's his like flavor of the week is Han Blue, which is hilarious because we that's the problem with locals is sometimes they slant your thing. I was playing Thrawn Blue against them and winning. It's like, well, Thrawn Blue and Han Blue. Like, I wish everybody just switched to Han Blue and then I'll just play my Thrawn deck. I'll be super excited. All right. Well, that's enough, Alex. Hopefully you'll pick a deck here and we can review it. We will probably spend a little bit more time next week going through the actual PQ for it. So
yeah, I might actually bring my yellow yellow Obi-Wan. That's also in consideration on deck.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you choose sooner than later, and you don't just ignore me and then say, "Well, we could just be Palp Bros. We could dig up that red Palpatine deck. We could both play it, or we could just take the Hondo and call it a day."
I am still about just doing the full spectrum of Palpatine colors. Palp
right.
Rangers, that'd be so fun.
Shall we just do? We can all just do Palpatine. We've taken Palpatine red to how many events now? So
right. Who am I gonna sucker into playing like a mono green and a yellow Palpatine? I don't know. It's gonna be wild.
I'll play yellow. I'll tell you what. I'll play yellow Palpatine. I'm sure you could find a yellow or a blue Palpatine player. It's the green that might be a little bit hard. I could get the guy that runs a Sabine deck that made top 4th last PQ that plays in my locals. He played Palp Green quite a bit, like as his backup deck. That's like after he won all his promo crap, he would just play that. So I tried to convince him to get on the Palp train, just because it's a fun deck to play.